Ambulance officers were led to the injured man by council workers who saw him lying motionless at the base of a cliff north of the Bogey hole. 18-year-old apprentice carpenter Darren Chapman was the first to spot the victim after hearing faint calls for help earlier in the morning.
I looked over the cliff and I couldn't see anyone at all. So we went back to the depot, got some timber, come back. And I just happened to look down for curiosity's sake and just seen the guy laying there. So I went round the other side here and went down to see if he was all right. And that's when I told Jim to go and get an ambulance and get some help.
The victim, 23-year-old Bradley Turnbull of Merriweather, couldn't recall falling, but he thought he must have gone over the edge at about midnight. At one stage during his 9-hour ordeal, he crawled under a rock ledge to shelter from the rain. Ambulance officers quickly decided the conditions were too treacherous to carry the man out on a stretcher. Instead, they called on the Westpac NBN rescue helicopter. Medical experts were surprised by Bradley's condition after his lonely night. He suffered a head injury, a fractured pelvis and a chipped knee in a fall which just as easily could have killed him. Bradley enjoyed what could be the shortest airlift in the rescue helicopter's history, less than 40 seconds, to waiting doctors at Royal Newcastle Hospital. His condition this evening was described as satisfactory. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
While it could be argued the final year students of Francis Greenway High have been giving blood, sweat and tears for 12 years, on their last day at school it was just blood. 30 students gave about 20 litres to the blood bank, turning their backs on the traditions of Muck-Up Day pranks.
Those days sort of finished a long time ago through a lot of hassles, so we thought we'd give a bit of community service and help someone.
Last year, the final year students painted the Woodbury Neighbourhood Centre. This year's donation comes as a positive reinforcement for the community that student power isn't quite what it used to be.
According to the cast, this is a unique school production, a non-stop party that stimulates memories of yesterday, feelings about today and thoughts on tomorrow. Music from U2, The Beatles and Madonna receives powerful interpretation from the production's rock and brass band and vocal group. Equally powerful is the dramatic dialogue that explores some of those timeless family dilemmas. Current social problems are also explored. Facade will be staged tonight and tomorrow night in the College Hall.
The Hunter region has led the way in the detection and treatment of breast cancer with a special bus designed specifically for the purpose. Now that specialised service has been taken a step further with the accreditation of the Mater Hospital as a mammography assessment centre. Joining the Rachel Foster Hospital in Sydney, the Mater will provide free service up to the point of diagnosis for women aged between 50 and 69. That service includes screening, examination, magnification mammography and the removal of tissue. As part of the new state government program, it's hoped Westmead and Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney will also become accredited centres before the end of the year.
Chris Martin-Smith has been driving Newcastle buses for 8.5 years, but it's beginning to take its toll. He says he arrives home from a day's work physically and mentally exhausted.
You guys stick to timetables. You only get 5 minutes, if that, at times, if you're running on time to change your boards and put your feet up and unwind before you come back again.
His is not an isolated case. A survey of more than 200 Newcastle bus drivers unearthed some startling statistics. 58% of those surveyed said they used risky tactics to keep up with timetable deadlines. 65% found management unsupportive and unsympathetic to their plight, and almost half claimed they would accept redundancy if the package was improved. Social health expert Dennis McIntyre, the man behind the study, says management and staff have a massive conflict of interest. The report recommends prosecution of Newcastle buses if conditions aren't improved, and unions say that could become a reality if negotiations with management don't produce some drastic changes.
The employer has an absolute duty of care over his employees, and what we would be saying is that these people have not carried out that absolute duty of care.
A spokesman for Newcastle buses today declined to comment on the report. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
When the university called for exhibits, it had no idea of the response. As final preparations were being made for tomorrow night's opening, the extent of local talent became obvious. Although there are pieces in the exhibition from well-known artists like Greg Weatherby and Minnie Heath, it is the quality of work from locals like Philip Jordan of Singleton which have amazed organisers.
This young snake, when he was born, he got lost in the desert and he needed water to drink, so he went down this hole in the rock, went for miles until he found an underground sea of water, and he drank so much that the rocks exploded and the rocks came and formed the water hole.
The paintings are just part of the display. These rare emu eggs are priced at around $500 each and are made by peeling back layers of shell. Most of the fighting sticks and boomerangs were dug up in the Wickham area and are part of the university's own collection. The majority of back injuries affect the spinal muscles and tendons, and although painful and often debilitating, they are easily preventable. Watch Your Back, Save Your Spine addresses these particular injuries. The star of the video is Johnny Wrongen, who thinks he knows everything about back care, but ends up in one disastrous situation after another.
So what's there to know? Something's dirty and you clean it. This is all a waste of time if you ask me.
According to workers' compensation statistics, back injuries have cost industry, businesses and individuals more than $216 million over the last 3 years. Most of those injuries have occurred in the manufacturing industry, particularly with process workers, but community service employees like nurses are also at risk.
There's not a lot of tricky things that people have to really look out for, and this video just aims at trying to point those common sense ideas out to people in a fairly fun sort of a way.
The school choir marked the official opening of the new building with a song Under the Boughs of an Oak, planted in 1882 by Sir Henry Parkes. Until this year, the infant classrooms at East Maitland were in demountable buildings several blocks away. They've now settled into modern, spacious and well-equipped rooms in the same playground as their older schoolmates. Construction of the new building took 2 years, and the original school block was also renovated. Parents, teachers and students looked on as Minister for Education and Youth Affairs Virginia Chadwick unveiled the opening plaque. A special visitor was Miss Edith Pearce, a student in 1909 who came back to teach at the school in the 1920s. The students of Telarah Public School were also celebrating today. Their school is 100 years old and classes were abandoned in favour of an official party. The centenary was marked in the traditional way, with cakes, songs and speeches. Not so traditional, though, was the preparation for the school's next major landmark, 150-year celebrations. A time capsule has been buried with instructions for opening in the year 2040. A sealed brass box contains school magazines, photos and memorabilia, a gift from the 1990s for the students of the future.
The state government's excuse for suspending work on the notorious Swansea S-bends is that it needs the money for flood-damaged roads in the west of the state. That might suit National Party Roads Minister Wal Murray, but it has Lake Macquarie's Mayor Ivan Welch breathing fire.
Well, I believe this is the straw that's broken the camel's back. This is the one that's going to make us get some action going. We're going to get off our backsides and we're really going to sock it to them. I believe that we can do something as a community, enlist the support of people like the Hunter Development Board, the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce and other reputable organisations can get behind us and we can really slam it into this government on this particular issue.
And he says if the government won't listen to reason, then he'll be advocating radical action.
I believe that we will picket some of the offices of the government and hopefully disrupt the work that goes on there. Now that should get them to start thinking twice about what we're doing. But I need to talk to that with other people about that. But any radical plan that they come up with that's going to hold up the government and not inconvenience the people is what we're after.
The Robothon was held to raise money for the purchase of vital equipment needed for asthmatics and also to fund ongoing support and education of asthma throughout the Hunter Valley. Asthma is on the increase, and between 1977 and 1986, 5,668 Australians died from asthma-related diseases. Its sufferers include 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 5 children. And at the Howsat Sport and Fitness Centre, a big number of aerobics devotees combined to raise a large sum of money. Organisers were especially pleased to see the number of youngsters willing to give up a little of their leisure time to help others. Many of Newcastle's well-known sporting identities also lent a hand. Tony Butterfield, the tough second rower from the Knights, and talented winger Marty Creaker, recovering from the Knights' banquet last night, jumped into the fray, albeit at a subdued pace, and Chris Steele, along with Jerry Everett, kept the Falcons flag flying with their appearance. Commonwealth Games gold medalist Greg Hayman was also leading the way in raising money, but it seemed that the children were just having a good time. All the trimmings were there for a great night as stretched limousines ferried partygoers to a club oozing atmosphere from the time you tiptoed on the red carpet to the lobby where a band was on hand to bid a warm welcome. The ladies of the Hunter Valley went to extra lengths to look glamorous and the results were spectacular. The stunning gowns complemented the odd hour or two of preparation for the big occasion. Even the gents swapped their overalls and pinstripe suits for black ties to add to the glitz and glamour of the auditorium. Alan Ward's big band sprang into life and the scene was set for the banquet of the year. Along with the festivities, the Newcastle Knights conducted their yearly presentation of trophies. Youngster Stephen Crowe won the President's Cup Players Player of the Year, while in reserve grade it was local product Steve Walters who picked up the award. In first grade, Mark Glanville was successful after a brilliant season, which culminated with a spot in the train-on squad for the Kangaroo Tour. Coach Alan McMahon made 2 awards, Paul Marquette the recipient of the Encouragement Award, and a deserving Tony Butterfield collected the Coach's Award for his outstanding season. But the big one of the night was the Player of the Year, and Chairman Max Fox did the honours. Formalities over, it was fun time, and when this reporter left the Buzzing Legs Club at around 3 a.m. this morning, there was plenty of signs the night was yet a long way from over. With the summer months ahead of us, we look to the surf lifesavers for safety on our beaches, and every year they come to the party to look after us. And on the Central Coast, the surf clubs do a great job, and in all competitions, whether it's state or national, they are up there amongst the best. This Tuesday night, the Gosford Greyhound Club has got together with the 15 surf lifesaving clubs on the coast and have come up with a great promotion, a dry boat derby with the winning club taking away a $7,000 surf rescue boat. Hard-working Secretary of the Gosford Greyhound Club, Paul Greentree, explains the format for Tuesday night.
There'll be 4 heats run, with each team carrying a 4-man crew, just over the 300-metre journey, and I'm glad they're doing it, not me. And they'll be running with the 4 heats, as we said, and the winner of each heat will go through to the final. And we've got the 4 heats kicking off around about 7 o'clock, and they'll be spaced out for the first hour, and then after that, around about an hour and a half, the guys can recoup and get a bit of breath back and talk tactics and get back into the final.
Any restrictions on the boat?
Mike, the boys from the Central Coast have really got together and drawn up a very hard resume for the whole boat. It's supposed to be 70 kilos weight, 4-man crew, and each boat must be a regulated size for that, so they've really got into the nitty-gritty of it.
Things look rosy for the Gosford Greyhound Club, according to Vice President Perce Fletcher.
Greyhound racing was an uneconomical thing on the Central Coast, but since the GBOTA have taken it over, slowly but surely it has risen, and the GBOTA are hoping that it is one of our most successful clubs in the years to come.
And of course a great promotion coming up for you.
Oh, terrific. We're proud of this. We're proud of the fact that the Central Coast is a great area for greyhound racing and it also for surf clubs. And to get the two in together, well, we feel that Paul Greentree has certainly done an achievement.
We've spoken to Paul about the surf club races on that particular night. What about the greyhound races themselves, a 10-race program?
A 10-race program and 4 heats of the Sponsors Cup. Well, that is going to be terrific. You know, we will get very good greyhounds on that night.
The Evoca Surf Club got a march on their rivals with a test run of the green machine on the track, and even one man down at practice and with a backup crew promised the signs were there they might be tough to beat. Of course, the champion club picks up the magnificent surf boat, and the rest of the proceeds of the night will be divided up between the other 14 clubs. See you at the Gosford Dogs on Tuesday night.
In the Hunter, those stations that had fuel did a roaring trade as weekend motorists rushed to fill their tanks. But at almost 85 cents a litre, many found it a bitter experience.
It's incredible, you know. I come from Sydney and I've just driven up here for the weekend and it's just added an extra $50 to the weekend.
But they were the lucky ones. Many stations didn't have a drop of petrol to sell at any price.
We ran out of Ultra yesterday lunchtime, ran out of Super this morning, and we don't look like getting any petrol till Wednesday of next week.
Drivers were shocked by the thought of an extended period without fuel.
It's not good news at all. I have a long way to travel each day to work and I rely on my car for transport, so I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't get petrol in the next couple of days.
And public transport might not be the answer. Taxi drivers say they're picking up scores of frustrated passengers from bus stops, but are finding it difficult to stay on the road themselves.
We're finding the LP gas is extremely short at all service stations. There's only about 4 operating at the moment with LP gas, which makes it very, very hard for us, and they all have limits of $10, which does not carry us very far when we do around about 500 kilometres a day.
It was destined to be a big day for the Bucket and Spade Brigade, the biggest ever in fact if all went according to the plans of social science students from Newcastle University, who had their eyes on the world sand modelling record. They hoped to build a serpent some 6 kilometres long that would satisfy the strict specifications of the Guinness Book of Records.
The real record stands at 5.68 kilometres, and that is a sand castle rather than a sculptured sand castle. It's got to be 1 metre wide and 1 metre high.
But things went against them from the start. An angry ocean had eroded most of the raw material and indeed threatened to wash away much of their hard work. Then there was an acute shortage of manpower, and as the arms and backs began to ache, a quick rethink took place. An all-out effort was made to join the existing lines, and the scholars decided to settle for an Australian record of just over 1 kilometre. Slightly less demanding but just as much fun was the official start to Bike Week 1990. A discovery tour of Newcastle attracted more than 50 riders, who pushed the pedals over a scenic 8-kilometre course. A stiff breeze made the going tough, but as the petrol crisis looms, these could be the people laughing all the way to the bank. The Hunter service stations that had fuel today could have sold it at any price they liked. 85.9 cents a litre didn't deter these drivers, who topped up their tanks in anticipation of a petrol drought. Unleaded fuel is already in short supply, but stocks of super are generally holding out well. There are some exceptions though, and more than one station has been left like the proverbial pub with no beer. Newcastle taxis were firing on all cylinders thanks to a fresh supply of LP gas.
We won't have any problem with our service in the foreseeable future. We've got an alternative supplier of LPG, and we've been assured that even at our own station there's sufficient supergrade fuel there to see us through to the end of the week.
Buses too remain largely unaffected, with the Newcastle depot boasting a diesel reserve of some 260,000 litres.
At the moment we've got about 30 days stock in Newcastle, and we're keeping a good eye on what's going on.
Maurice O'Shea was one of Australia's most famous winemakers. He's remembered as a discerning table winemaker, but his greatest claim to fame lay with his blended wines. The McWilliams winery at Petrol credits much of its success to O'Shea's artistry. Within the industry, he's acknowledged as the giant of young Australian winemakers.
He made beautiful wines as an artist. That was probably the quality he had.
Friends and family gathered at Newcastle Regional Library today to honour Maurice O'Shea. Daughter Simone Bryce presented the Lord Mayor with personal letters which will form the basis of an archive on the great winemaker. Until now, they've never been read outside the family.
And I think it's a wonderful idea that they're going to have something in the city where he did most of his work. I mean, he worked outside in Petrol, but he came constantly to Newcastle, so that it should be here that they have a memorial of some sort.
34 years after his death, O'Shea's reputation lives on, as do his wines. His 1954 Richard Hermitage took pride of place at today's presentation. 3 bottles recently commanded $2,000 at auction. Friends say Maurice O'Shea delighted in fostering misconceptions about himself, leading the curious down many false trails. The O'Shea Archive may clear many of those myths and create greater public awareness of the man and his achievements.